Welcome to Spirit Portal, a podcast with me, Erica Anderson. I'm an evidential medium and a spiritual seeker, always on a quest to more deeply understand the magic and mystery of this universe. Join me in an exploration of the realms, both seen and unseen. I'll share my insights and be joined by inspiring guests with their own unique perspectives on living in this quantum, magical universe. Welcome back to Spirit Portal. Hello, lovely listeners. It is so good to be back here with you again today. And today we have part 2 of our conversation of communicating with the elementals. And I'm really excited to talk about this today. So I think we'll go deeper a little bit into the conversation. I want to talk about the upper, the lower, and the middle worlds and the realms within each. And at the end, I want to give you some guidance on deepening your own connection as well. Because in part 1, we explored the foundations of building relationship with the spirits of nature, the spirits of the land, the unseen consciousness that dwell literally just beyond our own everyday perception. And so, I want to go deeper today, but please know that I do not have all the answers. Quite honestly, the deeper I've journeyed into these realms for myself, the fewer certainties that I have. Okay. And that is something that absolutely electrifies me, excites me. And I want to share that excitement with you today because everything is right here. And our doorway of perception is so much bigger than what we think it is. And that is why people use psychedelic medicine to open up their doorways of perception. And I support that. And I don't. I do it through my own journeying and through really finding myself. And I have no judgment about how people access, but for me, this is my access point is through noticing. And I just love the mystery of it. I've found more questions and I've had experiences that are difficult to explain and are so special to me. And so I think that's where this journey begins. Okay, so one of the greatest, actually, no, I'm not even going to say it like that. Today, this is why I'm recording this podcast, is because this experience that I had today. So I'm just going to start it from that instead of what I've written. Okay, today, I went on my spiritual hike. And this spiritual hike is what I do. It is part of, I've talked about it in the past, so I'm not going to go into it, but it's my hike that leads me into the spirit of the land, deeply, deeply into the spirit of the land. I'm able to channel on this hike. I'm able to communicate with the spirits. I'm able to communicate with the ancestors. It is a mystical journey that I go on when I go on this hike. I don't do it for exercise, although the beginning part is always exercise because I have to get all the junk out of my energy before I can do that. So today, when I got to the top of where I was hiking, I sat in this new place and it was absolutely beautiful. Everything is green. It looks like there are castles around me out of rocks and pyramids out of the earth. And I'm in a valley and I'm listening to the birds and I'm just sitting there and I start noticing myself searching for, the ancestors and the spirits of this place, the ones that have connected with me so deeply and that I talk to. And I started searching and all of a sudden through my head, I heard, "Stop searching for us, just be with us." And I was like, "Stop searching for you, just be with you." And it clicked in that moment is like how much we search for these things, how much we search for the experience instead of just become one with it. And as soon as I got that message and switched the mentality of my own energy to stop looking for them, all of a sudden I just relaxed into the moment, deepened into the earth, and just had this really beautiful moment of listening to so many birds singing and the rustle of the wind through the pines and the callings of the animals. And I was like, we're all right here. We're all right here. And we spend so much of our life searching instead of just opening. And so that's where this podcast episode part 2 comes from. It was from that. Don't search for us, just be with us. And of course, I think of mediumship so often. So, of course, I thought of mediumship with this as well. I'm like, of course, that's the key to mediumship, too. You don't like search for the spirits that want to communicate, you let them come forward and then you blend with them, right? So, many of us approach spirituality as seekers, and we look for signs. We look for the fairies, we look for the spirit guides, and we're looking for proof. And the most profound experiences I've ever had were when I wasn't searching. Literally, every one was when I wasn't searching. It's when I've been in flow or sitting under a tree or listening to the birds, just becoming present. And that doesn't mean that you're going to instantly see a fairy or start channeling, but it means that you're opening yourself to the spirit. You're opening yourself to the present moment. You're becoming a part of the landscape, right? Remember, nature is our home. We are as much of nature as anything on this planet. And so sitting outside and letting something shift, not because something appears, not because a perceived portal opens, but because you're quiet enough to feel that you're sitting inside a living world, not all of which we can see, right? Not a world just filled with objects, but a world filled with presence. And that is where the spirit is. The spirit of us, the spirit of the earth, the spirit of the elementals, the spirit of our ancestors. And when you step into that world of presence with your own presence, it changes everything. So I want to look at this from another perspective too. So many traditions describe reality as existing within like three primary worlds. So the upper world, which is where I spend a lot of time, the middle world, also where I spend a lot of time, in the lower world. Okay. So I want to be clear that when I talk about the upper, middle, and lower world, I'm talking about it from my experiences. Of course, I have exploration of my spirituality through the Druidic perspective. That tradition, the shamanic practices of that tradition, has become my journey of discovery. But even before I was doing that, I didn't always know that I was traveling to the upper, middle, or lower world. It's nice to have a language to put to what I was already doing. But yeah, I just want you to know that I'm speaking from myself. I'm not speaking from any sort of indigenous representation or anything. So the lower world, coming from my Catholic background, I was like, oh, the lower world, well, that's like hell. But no, it is not about darkness. I guess it's darkness in the way that it's rooted. It's like the ancient. It's deep, deep, deep earth wisdom, Mother Earth wisdom, our animal friends, our animal allies, our spirit teachers, our ancient teachers, and the elemental intelligences connected literally to the bones of the earth. And so the way that I've entered into this realm of journeying, I have only ever done it on my own. And it feels rich. It feels alive. It's like entering, this is a good way of thinking about it, is like you're entering into the roots of existence, right? It's the feeling of predating humanity. So, like spirit beings of animals, trees, plants, rocks, also human spirits who are connected to the mysteries of the earth, formed by dreaming of nature. So, we have collective unconsciousness there. We have archetypes. We have power animals, deep spirit guides, benevolent beings, healing energy. And so when I've gone on journeys through this myself, I've done it through drumming for myself. I have a hand drum, or I've done it laying on my bed when I'm home alone, and I go and walk myself down to this sacred place inside of my consciousness. And then entering into this sacred place, I go deeper and deeper and deeper. And my consciousness meets the reality of that consciousness. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that, giving you that example of what the lower world is. It's fascinating because there's the lower world, we call it. And so in our human minds, we want to like make it look like a globe, and we walk down the stairs and go into this other world. But don't be mistaken, there are thousands and thousands, infinite number of realms inside the lower world. And, you know, when I go on my journeys in there, the way that I end up going, it's like I'm walking down this deep, deep path, deeper and deeper into the earth. And there are all of these portals, and I could choose one of thousands to walk into. And so every time I journey into the lower world, I enter into like a new teaching and meet a new being there. The middle world is pretty fascinating because it overlaps with the reality that you and I live in every day. This is the realm where a lot of traditions place nature spirits or spirits of place or guardians of the land and a lot of the elementals. And it's not somewhere else. It's right here. And that's where I'm shared that story at the beginning of the podcast where they said, don't search for us, just be with us, because it's right here and we aren't always perceiving it. Right. So the middle world is like the hidden reality or the dream aspect of where we live now, the hidden reality of our everyday life. And in the middle world, we can travel back and forth between time. We can journey for things that we've lost. We can perform distance healing. When I'm doing psychic readings or working with spirit guides, often I'm in this middle realm. There's the hidden folk and the fairies and the elves and the trolls, because in the lower world, there's a corresponding dream aspect in the middle world. So you can find them in both. So you can speak to the elements of air and fire and earth and water here. And you know, if this is part of your belief system, you can help recently deceased people cross over in this space. And in the middle world, there's both benevolent and trickster energy. And the middle world is a fascinating place because I think this is like when I think of like the astral realm, I consider that to be a part of the middle world. And so when we're in our dream space, when we're doing a lot of shamanic journeys, maybe you go from the middle world to the lower world. Again, you're not always perceiving it, but it's there. You can meet the same benevolent helpers in the lower world that you could meet in the middle world, because we are confined by our physical bodies, right? But when you access these things through your consciousness, through your spirit, you can travel to all of them. It takes time to figure out how to do it, but you can. And that is how you meet these allies and these friends and these beings, through your consciousness. So again, don't search for us, be with us. So then there's the upper world. And this realm feels very expansive, luminous. You know, it's the place where we go for higher guidance and spiritual teachers. This is the divine source intelligence. And this is consciousness that feels absolutely not bound by form. Right? So we think of the angels, we think of, you know, the deities, we think of bright, eternal light, total darkness, because the form of beginnings, crystalline cities, cloud like realities. And this upper world is formed by the dreaming of the gods and the goddesses and the ancestors. It's formed by the dreaming of the ascended masters and the helpers. And so often we access this world too in so many ways. The thing is the longer that I've been journeying to these different realms, I feel like they're not necessarily fixed destinations. they're states of being that we can access. You know, when shamans and the language became upper, middle, and lower world, it's because ancient people really needed language to describe experiences. So it became like a framework, right? But the reality of these places is way more infinitely complex because there are countless worlds within worlds, dimensions within dimensions, and literally infinite realms nestled inside one another, like little Russian dolls of consciousness or something. So the three worlds may be a way of helping our human minds navigate something way greater than what we can comprehend. And I think as humans, we need that. We need to make things be a little bit smaller so it can fit into our framework so that we can experience in a way that feels safe for us. And so, okay, where did the fairies live? Because I know that you're like listening to this and you're like, how do I talk to the fairies? And that is a beautiful question. And I guess from my perspective is I don't think they live anywhere in the way that we do. Like, I don't know how to like address them male, right? But they absolutely exist in the frequencies of consciousness and they're able to take form when they need to or when they want to, right? Just like angelic helpers or, you know, how we know that there are portals between the earth and other spiritual realms. And that's where things like the dog man could come in, or that's where divine beings and divine helpers or galactic beings can come in and take form and be in this human realm, right? Just like we can go through a consciousness and move to other realms. So fairies exist in the frequencies of consciousness, but sometimes they're going to appear as a tree in the forest itself, or as the energy or the frequency of the river that you walk by every day. Sometimes they are in the mountains, sometimes they're on the mountains, sometimes you can feel them individually, and sometimes you feel them as a landscape. Sometimes the sacred places that have been honored for centuries are where fairies have a lot of strength and energetic consciousness. But I think they move between realms even more fluidly than what humans can do, like much more fluidly. So the question isn't really where they live. The question is, how do we meet? How do we become available to encounter them? And that goes back to my story. Stop searching for us, be with us. Traditionally, we journey, right? So we might want to meet them through a journey and experience, like I will do in my bed and just laying here, or if I go to a ceremony, or when I go into nature by myself, right? Or I can sit in my room and meditate and journey that way. But drumming, meditation, going into trance states, whether you're doing it from meditation or music or dance, visualizing, but there's an intentional movement of your consciousness. And those are the definitely ancient and well-known methods for entering into this reality or this non-ordinary reality, non-human reality. But not everything has to be through journeying either. So we stumble into these experiences with the elementals all the time. We have a dream. The other night, I had a dream of one of my new animal guides. I had a snake coming forward in my dream, and I knew that there was a message for me of my own transformation in that. In the past, I would dream of my animal guides. The eagle came forward. But sometimes we walk through the woods and we have a complete shift in our energy, and we feel like the electricity of the air around us shifting, right? Sometimes we have a profound moment of grief that cracks us open to a new experience, just like a near-death experience does. And when we go into places, and this is really important, but when we go to places that feel strangely alive, pay attention because there's something there. There's some sort of doorway for you to walk through there just by bringing your presence into that space. And we talk about these places as vortexes, like the vortexes in Sedona, or sacred sites, or portals. There are standing stones where people have created an egregore of energy, where there's an opening then for the realms of consciousness to be able to travel more easily. That's the type of place where the veil feels thinner, but sometimes walking deep into a forest is palpably different, where reality can feel softer around the edges. And that is very common for me. Places where I sensed I was standing between worlds are places that I can't fully understand what's happening. But that is where we don't need to search, especially that is where we need to be. And we know that people have reported places of veils thinning across cultures. And throughout history, we look to the standing stones in Scotland or Ireland, or the pyramids of Egypt, or the pyramids in Sudan, or the pyramids in the Arctic, right? But that brings me to the following question of how can we invite them into our lives? How do we call them? Do they choose us? Do we choose them? And again, this is where the answer is definitely both. And I talked about this in the last podcast episode. So if you want to go back and listen to that one, I really laid the foundations out for building the relationship out of reciprocity and respect, and creating the altar and creating offerings and building a sacred space. So I'm not going to go into that again, but I will say again that the older I get and the more experience I have, that I do know that relationship is the heart of all of it. I want to think of something primal. And the other day I was up in the mountains at our cabin that we have, and I was sitting out there, and it was getting darker and darker and darker. And I was sitting out by a fire that I built. Fire is primal. And for human history, this feels far away from us now, but fire was life. If we wanted to sustain warmth and protect ourselves, we have been taught to be afraid of the dark, and fire provided a sense of protection. And, there were things that were scary in the dark. It also kept the wolves away. But it also became a place where we had community and storytelling, and we would transform our lives around fires. And thousands of years later, here I am sitting by this fire by myself, and the stars were up above me and the fire in front of me, and I'm staring at the fire. And there is a remembering that happens in that space, a primal remembering of our past, of our spirits, of this billions of years old planet that we are on, that has seen way more than what we can fathom or imagine in our minds. And thousands of years later, when I see people gathering around a fire, we still stare into it. And there's magic there. There's a portal, there's an opening. Whenever we connect to an ancient part of ourselves, or an ancient part of the planet, or an ancient truth of the energy around us, like sitting around a fire. And that is also something that happens around the stars. And the dark sky with bright stars is mesmerizing to me. I don't need a fire the way my ancestors did, even though I love it. And when I look at the stars at night, I think of my ancestors again, looking at stars just like I did. And I literally think that the stars are something that we lay on our backs and surrender ourselves to, because they give us this view of what else there is. It opens us up like a portal, because we start imagining what those stars are like, what the planets are like around them, what it's like to travel between them. And there's something that when you take that time to be in a liminal space, like laying in the darkness on the earth and looking at the stars that opens something up where elementals can come in, and we don't have to find them, we're meeting them. We're not trying to prove that they exist, but we are becoming a part of that world, and we remember. So we don't need to go searching for the magic when we can sit beneath a tree and just become a part of it, or listen to the birds and feel into their frequency, or watch the stars and let something open up inside of you. And one thing I want to emphasize is that you do not need to call yourself to be a shaman or a medium or a witch or a druid or a teacher to explore these realms. The doorway is literally like right in front of you. And like I said in the first episode, the first step is truly that reverence and relationship, building a relationship to the living world itself. And think about how so many of us move through nature without ever really knowing nature, what is around us. So, a way to start, as part B of our part 1 and 2 here, is choose one place. I told you in the last episode that I have sacred walks I do, but I also have like a tree that I leave offerings for. But my hike that I do is my one place. But choose one place, a tree, a stream, a park bench can be just the perfect place as well. You can be in the city. It doesn't always have to be in nature. You can literally sit under a tree in Central Park and do this and keep returning to it. Let that place become familiar with you. Let that place learn how to trust your energy and intention. Let that place know your vibration and your heart and your spirit. And recognize that so often we only spend a few minutes in stillness before reaching for our phone or moving on to the next thing. So wherever you choose your place, stay longer. Let the energy, let the land settle around you as your nervous system slows down, because then the opening occurs when you become quiet. And you can ask the energy of where you are to help you relax into the space, right? So I do this all the time. If I'm sitting by the river, I speak to the river and ask her to help me feel her, help me blend with her, and help me honor her. And it starts shifting your own nervous system so that you become more in sync with the spirit itself. And then you open your senses. Notice what you hear. If it's birds and trees, wind, notice what you smell. Do you smell pine needles? Do you smell salty ocean? Do you smell, lakes and the smell of like fish rotting? Notice the movement of the wind. Notice which tree catches your attention. Notice what draws your awareness and open to it. And this is going to open your own intuition through a heightened awareness. And when you get into that state, then it's easier to receive messages or see visions. Okay. But this is more empowering than just searching for the message or searching for the vision. You become a part of that space. And once you feel settled, once you feel grounded, once you feel connected, you can ask a question. And often that answer is going to arrive as a feeling, a sense of peace. You might get a flash like I did when I saw the spirit of that bumblebee. But sometimes you might not have anything happen until days later when you have a dream about that space or place or time. And that dream teaches you. Remember that there are many portals into these realms and these worlds. And the portal is going to access through our consciousness and through what feels the easiest way to get through. So sometimes if you're trying to see a fairy, it's not going to be easy for them to be able to communicate with you. One, if your nervous system is all jacked up. Two, if you're distracted by your phone. Or three, if you're just searching and you're not being present. So you don't always need to have a drum or a formal journey practice like I do, because every person naturally journeys. You go through your dreams, you go through your imagination. Maybe you're drawing, or you're writing stories, or you're channeling music, or you're sitting outside in your garden filled with flowers and you feel joy, and you're feeling that joy. And it's because you're connecting to the element of those flowers and whatever realms of consciousness want to be there with you in that beautiful space. So the deep presence is going to open that doorway. Formal journeying is going to give you structure. But I think the biggest question is, how do I know if anything's happening? And I think this is where our mind kind of gets in the way the most, because we're expecting really big things to happen, just like in mediumship. And connection usually begins more subtly. And just like trusting ourselves or building a friendship, those subtle experiences of connection build upon each other. And from there, more awareness opens. So maybe you feel unusually peaceful in one particular place and you keep going back to that place and you feel called to visit that place repeatedly. And then you start noticing that you're having more dreaming, right? And then you start noticing that you're having sudden insights outdoors. Or for me, I started noticing that I started singing in a different language, like channeling this language. And then you feel like you're not alone where you are. You feel like you're accompanied by something or someone, and you start recognizing it, that it happens more and more. And then you feel a heightened sense of aliveness, and then you feel like there's something there. And then maybe other synchronicities happen after that. So the goal here is not to collect experiences. The goal is to step into presence and open up to more than what you can see. So I'll leave you with a little invitation for you to do for yourself. Find that one place in nature. Let's say you visit it 3 times. Put away your phone. Find that place and every time go there. Be quiet. Literally introduce yourself. Maybe bring an offering like a flower or a glass of water or an acknowledgement, and just be attentive. And that is going to continue your journey into deepening into the relationship with the elementals. And I could talk about this for days and weeks. And it still wouldn't matter, because it has to be your journey. It has to be your experience. And the way for it to be yours and the way for it to feel authentic and real is by you showing up and becoming present and bringing your energy and awareness. Like they told me today, don't search for us, be with us. So I'm going to leave you with that. Much love, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of Spirit Portal. If you like this episode, please help me grow, share it with your friends, and have a beautiful day.